The set of the new action movie was exciting and kept everyone on edge from the very first day. Hundreds of spotlights, long rows of makeup trailers, bulky sets, and a constant stream of people preoccupied with setting up every little detail created a unique world behind the scenes of the film industry. The costume team ran around looking for the last detail for the combat suits. The special effects specialists constantly checked the functionality of the pyrotechnics, and the director, discussing the plan in a low voice, periodically cast quick glances at the monitor to make sure everything was going according to schedule. But even in this ocean of vanity, there was an island of calm. Keanu Reeves, the main star of the project, stood quietly to the side and almost imperceptibly watched as those around him prepared for another day of filming. He arrived a little early as always, and had already managed to exchange a few pleasant words with the assistant director and the head of the stunt team, Mund. Many members of the crew had long known Keanu is the kind of person who will never raise his voice or allow himself to be arrogant or rude to others. The industry was legendary for his politeness. He could carry heavy equipment himself if he saw that the lighting crew had a lot of work to do, calmly stood in the general queue at the cafe without any privileges, and talked to fans as if they were old friends. However, this time, a new actor named Mark appeared in the film crew, who got a noticeable supporting role. Mark was young, full of ambition, not shy about declaring himself, but often did so in a very unpleasant way. At first, no one paid much attention to his caustic remarks. It seemed that this was just the nervousness of a budding artist trying to establish himself in the group. However, it soon became clear that Mark felt something like envy mixed with irritation towards Keanu. He saw how the main attention of journalists and fans always went to Keanu, and he understood that neither skill nor charm would be enough to outshine this star. Instead of learning from Reeves and adopting his experience, Mark decided that the best way to attract attention to himself was to try to provoke his colleague into emotions. On the very first day of the script reading, he dropped a mocking phrase. "I wonder what it's like to play a tough guy all your life and still be such a humble guy." Keanu responded with a slight smile, as if he didn't attach any importance to these words. But those who were nearby caught the hidden challenge in Mark's voice. Over time, the injections became more frequent. When Keanu came to the site in the morning, Mark would often loudly, almost deliberately, comment in the presence of the entire group. And here comes our saint. Probably on his motorcycle, of course, without security or entourage. Everyone who knew Keanu understood that he really preferred modest transport and simple joys of life. But in Mark's mouth, these obvious facts turned into caustic sarcasm. Some of the crew felt uneasy. They tried to stop the actor, or at least redirect his attention to something else, but he just smirked and pretended not to understand what they were talking about. At night, tired, they discussed it among themselves. Why isn't Keanu reacting? Why won't he fight back against Mark? But the answer was simple. Reeves didn't like conflicts. He believed that unnecessary aggression only generated an even greater wave of negativity. On the third day of filming, the first serious incident occurred. The director suggested that a group of actors gather together for an emotionally complex scene where the characters had to experience the tragic loss of a loved one. Keanu, according to the director's plan, played the role of a leader who keeps his comrades from giving up everything and leaving. He was supposed to convincingly show fortitude and compassion. In one of the takes, when the camera was already rolling, Mark, unable to withstand the tension or hoping for a provocation, suddenly whispered loudly, "Let's see how the good guy will cope with tears." Keanu naturally heard, and the audience at the monitors tensed up, expecting a failure. But instead, he entered the role even more organically. The tears and grief in his eyes looked so heartfelt that the entire film crew, including the director, froze in complete admiration. When the scene ended, many people were quietly wiping away tears, and Mark, who clearly hadn't expected such an effect, stood aside with a displeased expression on his face. Later, during a break, he threw another remark at Keanu. "Well, You're just a tear machine, aren't you? You can tell from acting school. Of course, for people like you, everything is easy. And again, he didn't receive any sharp rebuff. The tension between them grew with each passing day, but it was one-sided. Mark looked for any excuse to make Keanu look funny or weak, while Keanu himself continued to show calm and fatherly patience. On the fourth day, there was a scene in which the heroes had to stage an impromptu shootout in an abandoned hangar. The stunt team prepared special charges that imitated gunshots, and the actors were given weapons with blanks. The scene was rehearsed several times. Everything was honed to the smallest detail. During one of the takes that required quick reactions, Mark, carried away by adrenaline, made a dangerous maneuver. He turned sharply, pushed Keanu, and he, losing his balance, fell. It seemed that everything could end in serious injury, but Reeves easily regrouped and was able to avoid hitting a metal box standing behind him. Immediately after the command stop, several people rushed to Keanu to help him up, but he only raised his hand as a sign that everything was okay. That day, many expected Reeves to finally break down and tell Mark everything he thought. But Keanu only thanked the 3 lighting technicians for their quick response. One of them managed to remove a massive cable from under the actor, smiled, and went to the director to look at the footage. Mark was apparently expecting a scene or at least a serious conversation, but he got neither. To the surprise of his colleagues, this state of affairs lasted for almost another week. Almost every evening, someone from the senior film crew stuntman, second director, site coordinator would approach Mark and gently try to hint that such behavior was unacceptable. But he would brush it off. "Oh, what am I doing?" He himself doesn't say anything. Maybe he even likes it, and you all just take celebrities too seriously. One evening, already towards the end of the second week, they were about to film an emotionally charged night scene on the set, where, according to the plot, Keanu's character had to save Mark's character from a deadly trap. Ironically, it was Reeves who ended up saving his main opponent in the film. Assistants were setting up spotlights, stylists were adjusting makeup, checking fireproof suits. Filming was supposed to go on until almost dawn. Everyone was a little tired. Just before the scene began, Mark, waiting for the moment when the director went to the monitors, suddenly said loudly so that everyone around could hear him, "So, are you ready to save me, St. Keanu? I hope you don't enlighten me so much that I go blind from your radiance." Most of the crew looked at each other. Someone grimaced, someone waved their hand, someone sighed barely audibly. It was obvious that the team was tired of this continuous stream of sarcasm and was waiting for measures to be taken. However, Keanu remained silent again. He only concentrated on his lines and the choreography with the stuntmen. When the scene began, he acted flawlessly. He played dedication, confidence, and sadness at the same time. The partnership with Mark turned out to be surprisingly realistic. Reeves' character literally covered the young character during dangerous moments. At the same time, Keanu's face reflected genuine internal tension, and his movements showed care, as if the scene was not just staged, but alive, like a real rescue of a person. Mark finally felt that he was up against not just a modest guy, but an actor with a deep understanding of the character's soul. And the more he felt it, the angrier he became. He saw that he couldn't get through Keanu with provocations. He saw that he remained focused on the role. Mark was torn by an internal contradiction. On the one hand, he wanted to gain recognition and respect. On the other, he couldn't step over his pride to simply ask for advice. The situation reached its climax on one of the bright shooting days when the crew was preparing for a key shootout and chase scene. According to the script, the heroes, having miraculously managed to avoid an ambush, had to break through the alleys of a large metropolis on motorcycles and then engage in a short, hand-to-hand fight with the antagonists. The stunts were dangerous, requiring maximum coordination and mutual trust between the actors. In the morning, the actors were briefed, and everyone understood that the slightest mistake could lead to serious injuries. However, when it came time to start the staging, Mark showed up with a grim face and started making complaints that if someone didn't secure the motorcycle gear properly, that the fake guns looked too toy-like, and so on. It seemed like he was looking for a reason to start a fight again, trying to stir up a scandal. The cameramen and technicians just shook their heads, and the stunt coordinator even tried to take Mark aside to reason, but he waved him off. Finally, after several unsuccessful takes, during which Mark regularly fell out of step with the choreography, the director called a break and ordered everyone to gather around to discuss the details. He was about to give instructions on how to improve the dynamics of the shoot, but then Mark, noticing that Keanu was also approaching, suddenly shouted sharply, "Are they waiting for you? Or are you going to watch silently again, as we all risk our lives on the edge, while your saintliness is infallible?" A tense silence reigned. No one understood why Mark allowed himself to address a person who, in fact, did not provoke him into conflicts. And then everyone shuddered. It seemed that now he was going to answer something harsh. But instead, Reeves slowly approached Mark and said in a quiet, calm voice, "I don't want to quarrel. We are doing a common cause. If you don't like something, let's calmly discuss it. And I am ready to help if there is a problem with choreography or technique. I am here to work together on a good film." For the first time, Mark was speechless. He expected an outburst of emotion, anger, a shout, but instead, he received a gentle offer to talk like human beings. Awkwardness hung in the air, and the director, breaking the silence, asked them both to stay after the break for an additional rehearsal to eliminate all the mistakes. When they were alone in the corner of the stage, without any extra witnesses, Mark couldn't stand it any longer and let everything he felt out. He told how hard it was for him to perform next to a world legend, how he had dreamed of a big movie his whole life, and now he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being overshadowed. Realizing that it all sounded childish and pathetic, he still couldn't stop, as if he was opening his soul to a person who was ready to listen. Keanu listened calmly. He never interrupted or made a sarcastic remark in response. Only after Mark had spoken did Reeves speak. He told how in his youth he himself felt awkward in front of more experienced colleagues, recalled how random people in his profession helped him, how every time he tried to be better than he was yesterday. And he also added that we all go through similar complexes, fears, grievances, but it depends only on us whether we turn them into aggression or into a desire to learn. These words clearly had an effect on Mark. He stood there, looking down, silent. Finally, a little embarrassed, he asked Keanu to help him figure out the stunt scene. Reeves readily agreed, and together they went through the difficult elements of the hand-to-hand scene, step by step, rehearsed the movement with the motorcycles so that Mark felt more confident. Thumping. When the break was over, both looked different. The tension in their faces was gone, only the working state remained. Resuming filming, they delivered a powerful, spectacular scene. Mark acted precisely, coordination with Keanu was almost perfect. The stuntmen later admitted that they did not expect such a result in such a short time. The scene itself was dynamic, full of adrenaline, but at the same time, it felt like there was real mutual understanding and support between the characters. The change did not go unnoticed by the others. When the command "cut" was called, and the director joyfully shouted, "Excellent shot," many of the group heartily applauded. Tom the cameraman waved from behind the camera. The supporting actors smiled, and the costume designers were glad that everything ended without incident and no one tore their expensive suits. For Mark, this episode became a turning point in his relationship with Keanu. He realized that behind all this legendary fame, there is a person who knows how to listen and is ready to help. Behind the facade of star status lies spiritual simplicity and compassion for others. From now on, Mark decided to himself that he would stop this stupid ridicule and try to get the most out of his cooperation with Reeves, learning from him not only acting, but also the ability to maintain human dignity in any circumstances. The remaining weeks of filming were already under a different sign. Yes, Mark did not immediately get rid of his habit of throwing out caustic phrases, but every time he saw Keanu's calm smile, he felt ashamed. Gradually, he stopped breaking out and began to listen more. During breaks, they rehearsed scenes together, exchanged ideas. Mark even began to notice how many technical nuances he missed in the productions because he was too focused on his ambition. Now he tried to observe how Keanu communicated with the lighting technicians, sound engineers, costume designers, and understood that they all treated him with sincere respect, not because of his title of a star, but because he behaved with them like a human being. One evening, after a particularly busy day of filming, Mark saw Keanu. Instead of going to his dressing room and resting, staying behind to help the workers move the bulky scenery. He stood next to the boxes with equipment and pushed them along with everyone else. Mark stopped at a distance and watched for a long time as Keanu laughed, joked with the workers, and pulled out a jammed metal rack. This was the sight that finally broke the last inner barrier in Mark's soul. He came closer, offered his help, and then, sometime later, unable to find the right words, simply said, "Thank you for not returning my ill will. I learned a lot." The film was approaching its final stage, and the team felt like it had worked together as a single whole. So, even the strict producer, reviewing expense reports and planning an advertising campaign, noted that there had been no conflicts on the set for a long time, and the atmosphere had become noticeably friendlier. Did the audience know what kind of internal drama was unfolding behind the scenes? Most likely, no. But it is precisely these stories that become invaluable experience for all participants in the project. On the day when they were filming the final scenes, an emotional farewell of the characters and an open ending that leaves hope for a sequel, Mark and Keanu stood side by side. According to the plot, they had to exchange short phrases and shake hands. No one thought that behind this handshake there was a symbol of real forgiveness and reconciliation. Perhaps one of the most powerful lessons Mark has received throughout his career. When the final stop was called, everyone around burst into applause, congratulated each other, hugged and took photos together as a keepsake. "Forgive me for everything, I was wrong." To which he, with his usual gentle smile, replied, "We all learn from each other. The main thing is to draw the right conclusions." This story was remembered by everyone, from the director and producers to ordinary workers of the site. It clearly showed that real strength is not in loud words and not in arrogant behavior, but in the ability to remain human even in the most provocative situations. The very idea that aggression can be overcome with patience and kindness inspired more than one person in the group. When the film was released, the success was palpable. Critics noted not only the impressive action scenes, but also the special chemistry between the characters, which was evident in their interactions on screen. Many viewers wrote in their reviews that there was some sincerity and depth in the performance of the two actors, which made you believe in their characters from the first to the last minute. Of course, no one knew what path had to be taken behind the scenes to achieve this organicity. Of course, the film industry is full of surprises, big names, and scandals. But there are rare examples when star status is combined with amazing humanity. Keanu Reeves is just such an example. He showed how to respond to ridicule and provocations, remaining true to yourself and not compromising your own values. In the end, I would like to emphasize the main thing. Each of us in everyday life can encounter rudeness, envy, or injustice. And we always have a choice: to respond to evil with evil or to try to understand, forgive, and perhaps even help a person who has fallen under the power of his complexes. This choice makes us who we really are. If the story about Keanu Reeves and Mark touched you and made you think about your own actions and attitude towards others, support its distribution. Like, subscribe to our channel, and be sure to share your opinion in the comments. It is your activity that helps us continue to tell such stories that may change someone's life for the better. Do good, appreciate sincerity, and remain human In any situation,